This is another pretty straightforward video, so I'm just going to go through the notes that are on here, and actually there aren't really a whole lot of notes that you guys have to take for this lesson. So we're going to be talking about ways to select samples, and so this can be kind of confusing, so we put everything basically in the notes, and so I'm just going to kind of go through and explain this, and then there's another Desmos activity for you guys to go through with this. So there's the simple random sampling, and so each member of the total population has an equal chance of being selected in an unbiased representation of a group. So this is where like you put everybody's name in a hat and then you just randomly pick so many people, or you assign everybody a number and then you use a random number generator on your calculator or on Google, stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to go through how you can do the random number generator on your calculator. So hopefully you have your notes in front of you, and I'm going to show you what this looks like on your calculator. Okay, so to enter the seed number into your calculator, type any 6 to 7 digit number and then hit stow. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so any number. And then we're going to hit stow. And so that is right here, it's a little arrow beside the 1. So hit stow and then hit math. We're going to scroll to probability and then select random, which is the first option, and then hit enter twice. Okay, so that is basically just so that way it's a random number. Now we're going to go back to math and then go back over to probability. And then now we want the random number integer. So that would be our 5th option. And then we hit enter. So the lower is the minimum type of number that you are sampling. So I'm just going to put a 1 there. The upper is 100. And then we want 5 numbers. Now, if you have an older calculator, it will appear like what it does in the notes, and that's your lower, upper, and number of people in your sample. If you have a newer calculator where it looks like this, it's a little bit more straightforward to remind you of what the numbers that you are entering are. So then we hit enter, it looks like that. And so then we get 5 random numbers between 1 and 100. So that's how we do it on our calculator. So then going back to the notes, so an example, Ms. Oster has 30 people in her class. She wants to select 7 random students to complete an SAT module. So each student is numbered between 1 and 30. You can use your calculator to select 7 random students for Ms. Oster to pick. So that is an example of a simple random sample. Then we have a stratified random sample. So this involves the division of the population into smaller groups known as strata. So strata formed based on members' shared attributes or characteristics. So for example, you want to break down a population into racial groups, so Caucasian, African American, Asian, Hispanic, etc. Or if you say everybody with blue eyes over here, everybody with brown eyes over here, green eyes, hazel, etc. So that is how you first sort of pick what attributes or characteristics you want to separate your population into. Then A random sample for each strata is taken in the number proportional to the strata size. So for example, if there's 1,000 people, you want 40% are Caucasian, 25% African American, 20% Asian, and 10% Hispanic. This means that your sample, 450 of your data needs to come from the Caucasian group, 250 from the African American, 200 from the Hispanic, 100 from so it should be 200 from the Asian and then 100 from the Hispanic. So make that, this should be Asian. So basically the percentages have to match up with what you are using. So then we have a systematic random sample. So this requires selecting samples based on a system of intervals in a numbered population. So for example, you pick a random number like 4, and then you survey every 4th member on the list. So there is a system to it, but it is still random. Then there's the cluster random sampling. And so the cluster random sampling is kind of similar to the stratified, but different. So you're going to separate them into different groups. However, the population is grouped based on convenience or location, not necessarily specific details. So basically, if you have everybody in a room, instead of grouping them by their eye color or race, you could say, okay, people on this half of the room and this half of the room, that kind of a thing. Or like the example in the notes, the neighborhood population is divided based on 30% live on Guinevere Street, 25% live on Main Street, 25% on Main Street, 20% on Cooper Street, and 25% on School Street. So you randomly pick clusters, Main Street and Geneva Street, to survey every member in that cluster. So you split them up based on convenience or location, and then survey every member in 1 or 2 of those clusters, depending on how many you need. Then there's convenience sampling, and so this is readily available data is used, bias method to picking a sample. And so basically, if a teacher chooses to interview the first 10 people to walk into her class, or like a very common convenient sampling is somebody standing outside of a King Soopers or outside of a mall, stuff like that. So basically you're just standing there waiting for people to come take your survey versus actually seeking people out. So these are a little confusing. And so we have a few YouTube videos here for you guys to have other resources. And so if you get onto Google Classroom and look at the actual Google Doc for the notes, then you can click on these YouTube videos and have more examples. But that is all of the notes for me. Hope you guys have a great day.